You are listening to the Information Security and OSINT podcast, episode 7, originally released on May 15th, 2020. My name's Josh Amishav. This week, we'll talk about how to do reconnaissance on GitHub. GitHub can be a goldmine for finding leaked credentials and expanding the attack surface by finding new subdomains and API endpoints. This is important both from an OSINT or red team standpoint to figure out where to focus your attacks, as well as for the blue team to know what information has been leaked. Direct support for this podcast comes from BreachSense, the data breach monitoring platform. You know the easiest way hackers break into your network? By having valid usernames and passwords. Attackers collect millions of leaked credentials from almost daily data breaches, but without having any visibility into which of your employees or your users' credentials have been leaked, it's tough to protect against this. Integrate BreachSense's powerful yet easy-to-use API into your existing security solutions to prevent account takeover and stop online fraud. Today we're going to do something a bit different. Instead of starting off with the week's InfoSec news, we're going directly to a deep dive into GitHub Reconnaissance. In other words, we're going to talk about a few approaches you can use to find sensitive information leaked within your target's GitHub repositories. Let's first start with just a general explanation of what GitHub is. Git is a very popular version control system. It lets developers track changes made to a codebase. This is especially important when there are multiple devs working on the same codebase. GitHub is essentially a cloud-based Git repository where developers can store their projects. Each repository can be configured as public or private depending on how the owner wants to allow others to access the codebase. Now, this is sometimes messed up and allows you to find sensitive internal data that was accidentally made public. Obviously, GitHub isn't the only Git repository out there, but it's definitely the most popular. There are others like Bitbucket and GitLab. GitHub is a great OSINT tool for red teaming, pen testing, and bug bounty hunters. You can learn what kind of technologies your target uses, as well as other information that could be leveraged later on. You can search for a company name or domain name in the GitHub search to see what projects are stored there. For example, if you look at github.com/Airbnb, you'll see that they have 180 repositories and 28 people or employees associated with them. Now, one of the problems with this approach is that you get too many results back. For example, if you search Disney.com, you get over 1.2 million code results, which you obviously can't check manually. This is why being creative is so important. You can narrow down your search by adding specific keywords in order to find the interesting bits. For example, you can search for your target's name and then add a keyword like VPN or SSH or FTP to possibly find a way to get external access. Now, it's important to note that not all the results will belong to your target company. They can be from random people and may not be directly related, but sometimes, for example, if you search yahoo.com, you'll see people who have uploaded their subdomain recon that they've done against Yahoo. Obviously not directly related, but it may still be useful to you. Now, one trick you can use is to go to the target's jobs page to see what technologies they're hiring for or products that they use. Then in GitHub, you use the language operator or those products to narrow down your search. For example, you can search nbc.com, then you can use language::SQL and password as the keyword to find SQL files that may have passwords in them. Now, I mentioned before the importance of being creative in your search. You can often find leaked credentials by searching for things like company and password, or company secret, or company token. And sometimes password is going to be abbreviated as PWD. But my point is, be creative. The company could be their name, or could be a domain, or some other alternative. I've had success with searching for company and JDBC, or connection string, to find database credentials. Another one is company and security_credentials for LDAP or Active Directory. Another one is SSH2_auth_password, or send_keys to access remote servers. A GitHub user named Random Robbie compiled a great list of keywords to search for, which is available at github.com/random-robbie/keyword/blob/master/keywords.txt, and I'll leave a link in the show notes. Another tip, if the target's domain has multiple TDLs like .com and .net, you can search for the first part of the domain, and then leave out the TLD to search all other TLDs. So search for NBC and it'll find NBC.com, NBC.net. On the other hand, something like that may increase your false positive rate. Now, many times looking through the code results, you can find other data like internal IP addresses or domain names, which can be useful in a secondary attack like SSRF. That's when a web app lets you send requests to an internal server that you otherwise would not have access to. But now that you know what internal IPs to be looking for, it can save you a lot of time and let you escalate privileges. Another tip is that you can change the sorting from best match, or the results, from best match to recently indexed, and that helps weed out sensitive details like credentials that may be from 5 years ago and no longer relevant. Now, let's say we search for Amazon.com and language Python and pass. And in the results, there are a lot of code snippets that have www.amazon.com, which may not be what we're after. So we can add the not keyword and then the domain we don't want to see in the results. So www.amazon or amazon.com language Python and then pass and then not and www.amazon.com, which will filter out those results. An important note, though, is the not keyword needs to be in uppercase. Now, I mentioned before that companies have an organization page. For example, you can go to github.com/Disney and then click on the People tab to see who their developers are. Knowing who is developing code for your target helps increase the attack surface because then we have more repositories to look into, which may be leaking sensitive data. In addition to the org keyword we discussed, you can also search on user, as in user : to find specific people, or to search specific people's repositories. Most of the automated GitHub search tools will go to the organization's page, grab all the repositories associated with that company, then get all the repositories associated with the people tied to the organization under the People tab, and search their repositories as well for your keywords. In reality, though, you really need to target the employees that aren't tied to the organization. Those are the ones that most people have missed. For example, if we search Disney.com and send _keys, we find a piece of code written by a GitHub user named TimB0. Now, if we click on his username, we find that his full name is Timothy Boland. Then we can then search LinkedIn to see that he works for or used to work for Disney Interactive. Once we know who works for the target, we can search their repositories for keywords as well to find more potential targets. We don't want to take anything personal, but if you find a password, people often reuse those in a corporate setting, so this can be very useful. And this is another reason why I recommend doing GitHub Reconnaissance manually, because the automated tools aren't able to find employees that aren't listed under the People tab. It does take some extra work, but it can often lead to the type of findings that you're after. Now, let's drill down a bit on how to find employees of an organization that aren't listed on the company's GitHub page. One way to find other employees is to search for the target's domain name and then .files. .files are settings or configuration files that employees may use to configure their software. Another example is searching for Disney.com and language :bash. This allows us to find new subdomains that don't show up in something like a CRT search in certificate transparency logs. And again, you can use the not keyword to drill down more. The point here, though, is that if a user's code repository contains a subdomain that you couldn't find anywhere else, it's a good indication that they work for the target company. And you can use LinkedIn to verify that, and then pivot off of that to find other sensitive data that may be in their repositories. In addition to searching for keywords like password, you should also search their code for other references to your target company. And that often reveals things like S3 buckets or other internal resources. Okay, now that we've discussed how to do this manually, there are tools that help automate this process, and a popular one is called GitRub. GitRub clones your target repositories up to a configurable depth, and then searches the commit history for files that match signatures for potentially sensitive files. Now, to summarize, automating part of this process will save time, but will likely miss a lot of employees' repositories, narrowing your potential attack surface. The automated tools will produce a lot of results that need to be manually confirmed. Searching for keywords will produce fewer results and may be easier to manage. Finally, reviewing the code manually might give you access to things that you otherwise wouldn't find, like new subdomains or endpoints, which can be leveraged in a secondary attack. That's it for today. If you had any feedback or questions, especially around the show format, please contact me at podcast@breachsense.io. And if you got value from this episode, then please leave a short 2-sentence review on iTunes or Stitcher and share with a friend. See you all next week.